I watched Disney's Cruella and it was not very good. There were some good things in it and some very simple changes they could have made to make it a lot better, but what we got is a mess. And I'm gonna break it all down in this Cruella review. So the main conflict they focus on before everything really starts to go downhill is that of Estella fighting against her villainous Cruella persona, a conflict which brings in the classic nature versus nurture debate, which the movie really leans into after they reveal a big twist at the end. More on that later. The movie is consistently boring during the first, maybe third, but then it becomes so tone deaf when it makes a jump to become an incredibly cliche revenge story. I mean, just look at the plot summary. There's just 1.5 paragraphs dedicated to the original conflict before it switches. It's from that moment that it goes from just being boring to being offensively bad like any other Disney remake, full of unjustified plot twists that come out of nowhere. And of course, all of it is needlessly narrated by Emma Stone throughout the entire 2 hours. Before I get deep into that rant though, let me share some of the things that I kind of enjoyed. I thought the side characters were mostly good, really just Artie, Horace, and Jasper. They could have been a lot more interesting if they had time to do things on their own to build up their character, but they're too busy always being at Cruella's beck and call. Jasper is the only person to put up some sort of protest to her being a jerk, but they all get over it pretty quickly. The movie of course ends with all of them being the best of friends because she threw out a lousy apology which somehow leads them to forget the abuse she put them through and which she will inevitably continue to do. I wouldn't call Baroness a side character because she's a real star of the show. She is unapologetically ruthless, exactly what I was expecting Cruella herself to be, but Disney always has to have their main characters be likable. So they just tease at the horrible things Cruella does off screen and find justifications for all of her wrong actions. I didn't know much about this movie before going into it, but I knew they were gonna pull some stupid stunt to redeem Cruella in some way. They constantly make Baroness out to be the real villain in this, but if you're trying to bring down someone horrible by doing horrible things yourself, I wouldn't really consider that a win. They turn Cruella into this icon both on and off screen, even though she is incredibly selfish and willing to step on anyone she needs to in order to make it to the top. Exactly what the person she was fighting to bring down did. This is horribly inconsistent with the message Cruella herself is trying to learn about redemption, rising from your past, and not becoming the monster people expect you to be. But I like the costumes. The designs Cruella comes up with when she's trying to upstage Baroness are very intriguing. The soundtrack is also good, but that I really just mean they picked out good songs because I'm pretty sure everyone has heard these songs playing the same type of scene in another movie. Emma Stone put on a good performance, but I think she went in a little hard when she didn't need to. Whenever she switches to being Cruella, she puts on this voice which causes her to draw out every syllable.
It's not, Estella. That's the past. I'm Cruella.
It was a strange choice and got a little annoying. I guess the other things I thought were good I only think because my standards for live-action Disney films is pretty low. I thought this film had a nice style, but that's because by comparison, none of the other remakes do. They're usually shot-for-shot replicas of the original. Problem is, this film loses its tone at random parts throughout, and then it's completely gone in the last 2/3. It's so distracting. The editing choices change, all of a sudden we get this horrible in-your-face text littered all over the screen, exactly like what they did in The Great Gatsby. But it didn't fit with the 1920s vibe of that story, and it certainly doesn't go here. The choices they make at the halfway mark really just solidified that this is a Disney remake, and no remake is free from a stupid twist and change of tone at the end. I can't really get into it though without spoilers, so the rest of this video is going to be full of spoilers. Alright, here we go. I think everything officially started to go downhill in the scene where Cruella notices her mom's necklace. Her second mom. It's supposed to be a grand revelation that Baroness is Cruella's real mother, a fact which doesn't do anything to change her story or the relationship at all. They already hated each other. Cruella would have carried out her revenge plan even if she never knew this. The only thing this helped to give was a reason for her having Hell Hall at the end, but her plan of taking everything from Baroness would have led to that anyway. The twist was so unnecessary, and of course every moment foreshadowing that was so not subtle. Mark Strong does nothing in this movie until the plot needs him to start dropping hints that he's on Cruella's side. Even then, Cruella is irredeemable at this point, but they still keep trying to redeem her. She rallies everyone together, and why everyone agrees to help her, I don't know. She keeps joking that she won't kill anyone unless she really has to. Like that's someone you need to stay far away from. It would be fine if they showed that these side characters also had these villainous tendencies, but they don't. They're just bystanders to Cruella's immoral shenanigans. Also, I saved this for the spoiler section, but Cruella's second mom's death is absolutely hilarious. I don't know if that's much of a spoiler because it happens pretty early on and comes right the heck out of nowhere. We were just watching a punk teenager grow up, and the next thing you know, someone is being pushed off a cliff by some aggressive Dalmatians. Dalmatians which look terrible. The dogs are usually there, except when they're not, and you can always tell because they look disgusting. If they removed the twist with Cruella's backstory, they could have better kept to the tone and taught the lesson about growing from a tragedy and healing any feelings of guilt. Instead, I learned that if you are born crazy, you will never be anything more. It would actually be a fine backstory for a villain to see them embrace that side of themselves, but they keep trying to redeem Cruella from her wrongdoings, so that just doesn't work here. Who cares what I think though, right? This movie is going to be successful enough so as to give Disney the justification to make a prequel for every villain. I don't want these origin stories, I want more original stories that create new unique villains like these. So I think I'm looking at a solid 4 out of 10, would probably not watch again. I've already forgotten most of what happened. If you want to see this villain at her best, the 20 minutes of screen time the original Cruella had are far better than anything in this film.